I just took a little break from filming and I ate lunch. Dexcom kind of faded out on me a little bit, but not too bad. I am 107 and stable now. I did do a finger prick before lunch. I was 92, so it just went up a little bit, but I only had like 49 carbs, and most of the carbs came from vegetables. I did have a s'more for my treat though. So anyways, with that being said, let's jump right into today's video. Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. And I'm going to go into today talking more about the features that an insulin pump can offer that really shots can't. And I'm going to kind of explain the features briefly. And then maybe hopefully in the future, as I do more day in the live videos or as I get more into using these features on a regular basis, that I can share with you more in depth about what these features mean. The features I'm going to be talking about today are primarily a few things, and a couple of them relate to the Omnipod. One of these actually relates to the Omnipod. First feature is a temporary basal. The second feature is an extended bolus. The third feature is, well, kind of can tie into temp basal, is suspending your insulin. And the fourth feature that only comes, that I know for a fact, on the Omnipod is the food library. And I'm going to talk about these a little bit and share kind of how I've used them so far and what they can be useful for. So the first thing is a temp basal. A temp basal is just exactly what it says it is. Your basal program is designed to keep your blood sugar steady and stable in between meals, and when you're not eating, and when you're asleep, to kind of balance your liver out. I've talked about basal insulin and its importance, so feel free to go check those videos out. But a temp basal is just like what it says it is. It's a temporary increase or decrease in your basal insulin to better manipulate what your body is going through in the moment. A good example of a temp basal decrease is during exercise. I typically use a decrease in 75 to 80% decrease for 4 hours while I'm exercising, so I'm getting very, very minimal amounts of insulin so that I do not go low. Temp increases can be used for sickness, stress, periods, long periods of sitting, and for some foods. For example, me being in a clinical setting, when I'm sitting down a lot and learning new skills, we get very, very uptight because we're getting graded, but also because I'm not active, I need more background insulin. So I usually do a 75 to 85% increase in my basal insulin, so I get close to a unit per hour when I'm actually in my clinic setting, so that my blood sugars don't go dangerously high. They usually don't go past like 160, 180, depending upon what I'm doing and what's going on. So that is another thing that you can use, is temp basals to help with things. I've used temp basals also to help with food. For example, rice. I found that I need to do my initial bolus, say it was 50 grams of rice or carbohydrates for my meal, and it included some form of rice. Rice is very difficult to bolus because it is a blood sugar spiker, and it can make you high for hours after, depending upon what you combine it with. So I usually do my initial bolus with the pump, which suggests for me, so about 5 units. And then in addition to that, I would pre-bolus at least 20 minutes. So I would wait to eat my rice. And then also, while I have my bolus, I would actually put a temporary basal increase of 80% for only an hour, so that it kind of helps eliminate that spike, and it's pushing little bits more insulin in my body to kind of help keep that spike from going too high. And I usually don't spike past 130 when I eat rice now, because of this feature on an insulin pump. You can't really do this on injections unless you were constantly having to give yourself shot after shot after shot to kind of mimic a temp basal, if that makes sense. So temp basals are huge. They can help you a lot. Use them to your advantage. Do not be scared to use them. They work great for a lot of different things, but if you are using a lot of them, and you're like, say you're using a lot of decreases because you're preventing tons of lows in between meals, that means you probably need a decrease in your basal rate for that time. Same with if you have to use an increase all the time in your basal rate. I actually went through this just last week where I had to keep putting temp basals on at breakfast in the morning. I am currently at a 1/9 carb ratio instead of a 1/10. But it does make a difference in my blood sugars right now. I'm not going up to 170 and 180 and sitting there. I'm going up to maybe 120, 130, 140, and then I'm nicely coming down. So that little bit of a tweak in my insulin to carb ratio made a difference. So if you're using a temp basal increase, it's a good chance that you probably need more insulin up front with your meals, which means you need to adjust your carb ratios, or you just need more background insulin for that time of day. So use them when you're doing things that aren't from your usual activity, or you do it with things that you know no matter what you do, you need to have this background to kind of help, the background insulin to kind of help you. The second feature is an extended bolus. An extended bolus is giving yourself so much percent of your insulin up front and the rest over a period of so many hours that you set. This is typically used for high fat foods and high carb foods, like pizza will not spike your blood sugar immediately, but it can leave you high 3 to 4 hours after, once that digestion takes place because of all the heavy fat combinations that come with pizza. So I find that pizza, I need to do 75% upfront and 25% over a period of about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on what kind of pizza I'm eating. And that usually prevents my blood sugar from budging past 140 or 150 when I eat pizza. And it'll come right back down, depending, again, it depends on what I'm doing. It also depends on what I'm eating with. But I find extended boluses are very helpful for pizza. They would also be very helpful for desserts that are high in fat, say chocolates. They would be very helpful for pastas, because pasta is one of those ones, because of the fat concentration, that it could also spike you then, but it will also spike you later or keep you high later because of what it's combined with or what it's made out of. Extended boluses are also very helpful for when you're unsure of how much insulin to give, or if you're at a party kind of munching on foods, or you're not sure what the heck you're going to eat, or you're going to kind of graze and have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I did this actually yesterday. I had a pretty heavy carb day. I dosed myself like 8 units in total, and I dumped 4 units up front and the rest over a period of an hour. The other 50% over an hour, so that it gave me kind of a safeguard, because I wasn't sure. I had a lot of different things on my plate, and I was pretty sure that some would digest quicker than others, and some looked like it had more fat base to it or protein base where it's not going to digest as quick. So by giving myself that safety net of 4 units up front only and dumping the rest slowly over a period of an hour, so you're thinking about another 4 units over a period of an hour, so I'm getting a unit every 15 minutes ever so slowly, I was able to prevent having a low blood sugar, and my blood sugar never budged past 160 or 170. It's incredible what you can do with an extended bolus. It's an amazing feature, and that's something I wish I would have had at that Chinese restaurant the day my blood sugar plummeted into the 30s, because I probably needed them 7 units. But when you're on shots, if I would have been smart enough, like I've done extended boluses on injections before, where you give so much now and then wait a couple hours, give a few more units later. If I would have been smart enough to recognize that, hey, this Chinese food is super high fat, you're not going to need them 7 units right away. I might have only needed the 3.5 or 4 units up front, and then the 3 over another period of an hour or 2. And I almost guarantee you that I wouldn't have had a dangerous blood sugar at all. So I like using the extended bolus as a safety net, but it also works good for known foods like pizzas and pastas that aren't going to spike you immediately, but will spike you later. The third feature is insulin suspension. Now, you only really use this for me like if you're adjusting your settings, suspend your insulin so that you don't accidentally like give yourself insulin. Or something like that you don't accidentally deliver yourself insulin when you don't need it. But you can also use insulin in conjunction with a temp basal, or you can do either one. So like when I'm in a grocery store, for whatever reason, no matter how little insulin I have on board, because of all the amounts of like food I'm pushing, the bigger grocery stores I'm in, it takes me, you're walking around a lot, you're running around pushing a heavy cart. Walmart's a classic example. I can walk into Walmart with a blood sugar of 180 and come out with a 90 with a straight arrow headed down. Before, when I was on injections. Now when I go into like a Walmart or a grocery store, I suspend my insulin for a half an hour when I'm grocery shopping. I know it sounds crazy, but it keeps my blood sugar from plummeting. By stopping my basal insulin, I don't have issues with my blood sugar going extremely high, and it doesn't drop low. Insulin suspension is actually a great thing, and I don't think there's nothing wrong with doing it for a short period of time, especially if you know it works for you. Now, I could do a temp basal decrease of 100%, which is the same thing, for a half an hour. But when I'm in a grocery store, I want to do things quick, and it's actually quicker on the Omnipod for you to suspend your insulin. You go to the panel here and hit suspend insulin. Instead of a temp basal, you have to click, scroll through, and pick. You need 100% decrease for this many hours, and then hit go. With suspend insulin, it's 2 taps. Yes, or hit suspend insulin, hit yes, and it'll suspend for half an hour, and it'll beep at you for every like 15 minutes until you turn it back on. Suspending insulin does work. And some of you use it for when you're treating lows. I've actually done this when I want to like feel better quicker from a low, if that makes sense, or if like I know that my chances of having a low blood sugar again are high. I may actually reduce suspend my insulin for a half hour while I'm treating a low. To me, it actually makes the recovery time better and a lot more quick. Although I don't remember the last time I had a true low blood sugar below 70. And that's crazy to think to me that I haven't really had that. You know, I dance in the 80s and the 90s and the upper 70s a lot because I've learned how to maintain normal blood sugars. But I'd never dipped below 70 in quite some time. Or if I have dipped below 70 with the insulin pump, by either suspending my insulin or eating something really quick to prevent that dangerous low, my recovery time's quicker if I suspend my insulin. Sometimes I'll do it at night. If my blood sugar's 69 and stable, well, you probably don't even need to eat anything at that point. I'm comfortable letting my blood sugar be in the 70s, so I've done this where I've just suspended my insulin for a half an hour or put a temp basal decrease of 100%, and it's brought my blood sugar back up on its own. Now, if you're consistently having to suspend your insulin all the time, you need a lower basal rate. Or you need to consider reducing the amount of insulin you're giving yourself at meals, because if you've got to constantly suspend, that's an issue. But it also can work great if you accidentally give yourself too much insulin up front. I had this happen to me. I talked about this the other day, where I shut my basal insulin off for a half an hour when I knew that I delivered myself a half a unit too much of insulin up front, and that can make a difference in my blood sugar. So I let my bolus be my basal for a half an hour, and then it turned back on, and everything was all fine and dandy. That's a very advanced technique called exchanging bolus and basal, exchanging them two. But I'll talk about that later. That's something the Juice Box podcast does talk about. And the final thing I'm going to talk about an insulin pump can offer is your lovely food library if you have the Omnipod. So when you go into the dash, there's a food library, and I have things in here, and you can add, like, for me, if I go to like Chili's, I like their mashed potatoes, I like their baby back ribs. I'll add that in there, so that all I want to do is, if I want to add that to my bolus calculator, I hit add, and it'll automatically add 32 grams of carbs in there, so I don't have to sit and dig and research. But you can browse for foods that are at fast foods, alcoholic drinks, bars, breads, candies, fruits, vegetables. You can look up all kinds of things. I use it a lot for fast food. You can go fast food chains, regular sit-down restaurants, delis, international foods, food trucks that are more commonly used. And you can search, like, if you wanted to go to Arby's, and then you can go through Arby's here and select if you want, like their french fries, their appetizers, their entrees, whatever the case may be. This is very helpful on an insulin pump so that you don't have to sit and search things on your phone or pull things out of your head and go, okay, what is this? You can put it in a custom food, and you can add it to your calculator, and that can be all set and good. Like, I have a local pizza palace that's right down from my restaurant. I have it as set for 45 carbs when I know the amount of pizza I choose to eat. Now, some of you would eat a heck of a lot more. You might have to customize it to 70 or 80 carbs if you ate double the amount that I ate. Depends on how you respond to different things. But use these tools to your advantage if you have an insulin pump. Enjoy the precise dosing with an insulin pump too, because it's better off on your body, I think, to have, like, if you need 4.95 units, that you can get that. When you're not injections, you can't get that. So please use these features on a pump if you do switch to one. Don't be scared to try out temp basal, suspending your insulin, extended boluses, or the food library if you have an Omnipod. Feel free to try those out because they're absolutely fantastic and have made managing diabetes so convenient and so amazing. And the precise dosing has been much better on my body in keeping stable blood sugar. So anyways, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. And until next time for another video, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye, everyone.